America's farmland is crumbling from the inside out. In 2025, farmers across 7 major states aren't just struggling, they're walking away from their crops. In some regions, entire harvests are being burned buried or left to rot because it costs more to pick them than to destroy them. Food prices are climbing while supply chains unravel. Yet the people who grow the nation's food are being pushed out of their own fields. Wheat, corn, almonds, cotton, staples that once fed millions, are now symbols of a system that's turning on its own. Rivers are drying up, fertilizer prices have tripled, and some farmers have lost as much as half their income in under 12 months. Still, most headlines are quiet. No state of emergency, no breaking news, just quiet collapse. But beneath that silence is a crisis boiling over. What is driving American farmers to destroy the very land they once cherished? In this video, we uncover the harsh truth behind the breakdown. These are the 7 states where farmers are tearing down their own farms. And the consequences reach far beyond the fields. Stay until the end. You need to see this. Number 1, California. Welcome to California, the golden state that once fed the country with almonds, grapes, lettuce, avocados, and citrus by the ton. In 2025, that golden glow is gone. What's left is a brutal silence across thousands of acres. No tractors, no labor, no harvest. Just dead fruit hanging dry on the vine and soil that's cracking like glass. And not because of drought alone. No. This time it's because farmers have made a choice. A terrifying one. They've chosen to stop. It costs more to harvest the crop than to let it die. Let that sink in. This year, water prices in the Central Valley, America's most productive agricultural region, surged to record highs. Some farmers are paying over $3,000 per acre-foot just to keep trees alive. And when you add in labor, fuel, maintenance, insurance, fertilizer, and taxes, growing a single acre of almonds can wipe out any chance of profit. So what are they doing? They're ripping the trees out of the ground. Yes, fields of mature almond trees, 10 or even 15 years old, are being bulldozed down and sent to the chipper. Not because they're diseased, not because of a market collapse, but because they cost too much to water. Imagine walking into your local store, picking up a bag of almonds, and realizing it came from Spain or Morocco. Because farmers in California, where over 80% of America's almonds come from, are giving up. And almonds are just the beginning. Lettuce fields in Salinas, left unharvested, tomato farms near Fresno, shrinking by the day. The same goes for oranges, grapes, melons. Anything that needs water, labor, or a stable market is being scaled back or stopped entirely. This isn't about weather anymore. This is about a system breaking down. A system where food growers are being punished for trying to grow food. Farmers aren't just reacting to drought. They're reacting to decades of policies that now make it cheaper to destroy crops than to grow them. That's not a metaphor. That's 2025. And it's not just the farms that are empty. It's the small towns that lived around them. Drive through rural Kern County or Tulare. You'll see shuttered diners, gas stations with fading paint, grocery stores with half-stocked shelves. When a farmer doesn't plant, the whole economy flatlines. The mechanics, the drivers, the seasonal workers, the warehouse guys, they all vanish with the crop. And in the cities, people are paying more for less. Less variety, less freshness, less trust in what's on their plate. Because when supply shrinks, the system imports. And when it imports, nobody really knows what's been sprayed, frozen, altered, or relabeled. Some folks are waking up. Others are just tired. Tired of hearing the same vague answers while the shelves shift and the labels change. Tired of spending double for produce that tastes like cardboard. Here's what this really means. California is not just a state. It's the engine room of your food supply. If it stops, the grocery store feels it. And if 7 states stop, the whole system shudders. But this is just the beginning. What's happening in Arkansas might hit even harder. Because out there, it's not the fruit or the water. It's the price of hope itself that's collapsing. Keep watching. Number 2, Arkansas. Arkansas used to be a backbone state for American agriculture. Rice, soybeans, corn, and cotton rolled out of these fields like clockwork. In 2025, that rhythm has collapsed. The land is still there. The fields are still marked. But the farmers, they're vanishing. And not because of drought or bugs or floods. It's because planting anything here now feels like lighting money on fire. Over the past year, the cost of maintaining a medium-sized row crop farm in eastern Arkansas has surged by more than 40%. That includes fuel, fertilizer, seeds, insurance, and equipment. At the same time, prices for soybeans have dropped to one of their lowest levels in nearly a decade. For every dollar spent, the return is sinking. And now, more and more farmers are choosing not to plant at all. Not because they're lazy, not because they're reckless, but because running a farm in Arkansas today feels like walking into a casino with your life savings and spinning the wheel out of desperation. In counties like Phillips, Mississippi, and Lee, auction houses are filling up. Tractors, plows, land deeds. Generational farms held for over 50 years are being sold off in silence. And the ones who stay, they're scaling down cutting acres, leaving entire plots fallow. Some say it's just temporary. Most know better. This is not about mismanagement. This is about a system that no longer adds up. Imagine spending $35,000 just to prep for planting and realizing your likely return is 15. That math doesn't last. And neither do farms built on that kind of loss. Meanwhile, the downstream impact is accelerating. The corner feed stores are closing. The equipment repair shops are empty. Local diners that used to serve farmhands at 6 in the morning are dark by lunchtime. When agriculture falters, everything around it goes gray. In Arkansas, it's not just crops being abandoned. It's entire towns drying up from the inside out. And yet the pressure to stay afloat still clings to these communities. Folks are taking out emergency loans just to cover fertilizer. Others are using retirement savings to patch together another season, hoping the market turns. But hope is not a plan. And in 2025, it's costing people everything. Farmers in Arkansas aren't staging protests. They're not yelling on the news. They're quietly quitting the very thing that kept this state alive for generations. And nobody's putting their stories on prime time. The food system doesn't fall all at once. It starts like this, in counties nobody talks about, with names you've never heard of. Until one day, the grain elevators are empty, and your bag of rice costs 3 times what it did last spring. This isn't just about agriculture, it's about economic gravity. What happens when one of the most productive growing regions in the country decides that growing is no longer worth it? If California was about water, Arkansas is about numbers. And the numbers are screaming. Coming up next, Iowa. The fields are still green, but behind the scenes, it's a financial time bomb waiting to explode. Keep watching. Number 3, Iowa. From the air, Iowa still looks alive. Rows of corn stretch across the horizon like nothing's wrong. On the surface, it's easy to believe the heartland is holding steady. But dig a little deeper and the cracks show fast. This isn't stability. It's stagnation dressed up in green. In 2025, Iowa is no longer the engine of abundance. It's the poster child for a system that demands farmers keep planting even when it breaks them. The pressure isn't coming from weather or pests. It's coming from paperwork, loans, fine print, and silence. Farmers are being kept on the treadmill, not to grow wealth, but to feed a distribution machine that only pays them just enough to stay in the game and never enough to win. Here's the trap: federal crop insurance and subsidy structures are now so tightly wired into the system that stopping isn't an option. If you don't plant, you lose access. If you do plant and lose money, at least you qualify for the next round of support. It's a vicious loop where breaking even is the new success. In counties like Story, Boone, and Grundy, input costs for corn have jumped nearly 30% over the past 2 years. Diesel, fertilizer, seeds, rent, interest rates, everything's heavier. But corn prices, flat, or worse, falling. The balance sheet doesn't lie. A growing number of farms in Iowa are posting year-over-year losses even during full harvests. Still, they keep going, because stopping means being cut out of the very system that forces them to keep going. That's not farming, that's entrapment. And the buyers, they're not mom-and-pop co-ops. They're global corporations with pricing power so vast they can shave cents off the dollar and still walk away smiling. Meanwhile, the farmer gets pennies for bushels that cost him dollars to grow. Then the corn ends up in processed snacks, livestock feed, ethanol, or worse, shipped overseas for another layer of markup. It's a setup, and it's being run like a machine. The result: farm debt in Iowa just crossed $100 billion for the first time. Families are refinancing equipment, mortgaging acreage, delaying repairs, and cutting off entire sections of land from production just to reduce exposure. It's not resilience. It's quiet desperation dressed up as grit. Now zoom out. The same corn that's bankrupting farmers is filling supermarket shelves with junk calories. It's the base for syrup fillers and low-cost food substitutes. So while the people who grow it can't make a living, the people who consume it are paying more for worse food. That's not irony. That's manipulation, and the system protecting it, full of holes. Loopholes that allow megacorporations to profit from loss. Policies that punish diversification. Distribution networks that turn local abundance into national dependence. Iowa is not failing because the land gave up. Iowa is failing because it followed the rules. You can't tell farmers to keep producing at all costs, then ignore them when the costs bury them alive. The truth is, Iowa never stopped growing. It just stopped benefiting from it. Coming up next is Nebraska. But don't expect green fields and quiet hope. Expect bottlenecks, dead ends, and the sound of grain that can't go anywhere. Keep watching. This is unraveling faster than anyone will admit. Number 4, Nebraska. It didn't start with a flood. It didn't start with a drought. It started when Nebraska followed every rule laid out for it. Year after year, this state did exactly what agriculture experts, government planners, and mega distributors said it should do: specialize, scale up, export more, build for efficiency, focus on grain, be the workhorse. Now in 2025, Nebraska is paying for it, and not with weather, with collapse. The more the state obeyed the system, the more it lost control. Corn and soy fields now stretch so far they blend into the sky. But what happens when your economy depends on 2 crops, and both are held hostage by global markets and clogged logistics? You get stuck. Not from nature, from design. This is no longer a place where food is grown to feed communities. It's where food is extracted to feed corporations. In the past 12 months, freight bottlenecks have paralyzed grain movement out of the state. Ports are backed up. Barges can't handle river levels. Trucks are stalled by price surges and labor gaps. And guess who eats the losses? Not the grain buyers, not the exporters, the farmer. The man who did everything he was told to do. Elevators are full. Silos overflowing. Some farmers are piling grain in open-air mounds, praying it doesn't rain. Others are destroying product just to make room for the next harvest because contracts require them to plant again. The absurdity is baked into the system. Grow or lose your land even if you can't sell what you grow. It's not just cruel, it's coordinated. And the impact stretches far beyond the farm. In small towns across Nebraska, families are cutting protein from their diets because meat prices are through the roof. School cafeterias are switching to bulk starches and skipping vegetables entirely. Hardware stores are closing early. County hospitals are freezing hires. Why? Because agriculture props everything up, and when it buckles, so does the rest. Meanwhile, retail prices keep climbing. At the grocery store, the irony slaps hard bread made from Nebraska. Wheat now costs double what it did 3 years ago, while the farmer who grew it got paid less. That's not a market imbalance. That's financial engineering. And let's talk about who benefits. The top 4 grain processors in the country have posted record profits 3 quarters in a row. They buy low when chaos hits, they sit on product, then they sell high when panic sets in. Nebraska isn't failing. It's being harvested from both ends. This isn't weather. This is weaponized efficiency. The worst part, people here are too drained to even fight. They're not angry. They're not rioting. They're just tired. And that silence is the most dangerous sound of all. Nebraska followed every rule. It trusted the system, and now it's choking on it. Next, we head south. In Mississippi, the air is thick, the ground is soaked, and the flood isn't just coming from the sky. You're going to want to hear this. Number 5, Mississippi. Mississippi isn't collapsing quietly. It's drowning in plain sight. In 2025, parts of the Delta are so waterlogged they haven't seen a proper harvest in over a year. Soybeans have withered in puddles, cotton drowned before it even bloomed. And now more than 300,000 acres of farmland across the state sit unusable, uninsurable, and unwanted. This isn't just another story of bad weather. It's about how the entire system shrinks when the South gets soaked. Insurance won't cover repeated loss. Federal disaster aid drips in months too late. Infrastructure projects stall in committee rooms while levees crumble in real time. And when the water rises, the state is on its own. The result? Generational farms are being stripped for parts. Equipment's being sold. Land is changing hands fast and quiet. And behind those transactions are the same corporate buyers who bet on disaster and win big every time. The more farmers lose, the more private investors gain. That's the formula now. You fall, they buy. It's not farming anymore. It's asset flipping. And the impact, it doesn't stay in the fields. In counties like Sunflower, Tallahatchie, and Yazoo, local grocers are shrinking their fresh produce aisles. Not because there's no demand, because sourcing is broken. The very regions that once fed their own are now importing overpriced lettuce from across the country. And those prices they've doubled in under 18 months. A single head of cabbage has hit $6 in some rural stores. Meanwhile, food insecurity in Mississippi is rising faster than the river itself. 1 in 5 households now report skipping meals due to cost. But here's the twist: food isn't scarce. It's just stuck behind paywalls, policy, and profit margins. And where's the help blocked in red tape, smoothed out in talking points buried under grant proposals that never make it past page 1? Schools are cutting back on cafeteria portions. Clinics are reporting higher rates of diet-related illness. Parents are working 2 jobs and still can't afford boxed cereal. And all of this in a state that grows food or used to. Let's not sugarcoat it. The collapse in Mississippi is engineered by neglect. It's a combination of political indifference, outdated levee systems, and a corporate structure that never intended to help the people it uses. Because when everything goes under, the ones holding the insurance policies and land deeds come out dry. And the farmers, they're expected to start over again with less. It's not a storm, it's a strategy. Mississippi is what happens when the support systems fail and the vultures circle. It's a warning shot for the rest of the South. If the rain keeps falling and the markets keep tightening, this isn't going to stay local for long. Next, we shift west to Oklahoma, where the soil cracks from the heat, but the real pressure comes from another kind of drought, the one in money trust and basic protections. This unraveling has more layers than anyone's ready to admit. Don't go anywhere. Number 6, Oklahoma. The real drought in Oklahoma isn't water, it's trust. Trust in a system that promised prosperity if you worked the land hard enough. Trust in government supports that were supposed to kick in when the weather turned cruel. Trust in prices that once matched the sweat poured into every acre. In 2025, that trust is cracked wide open. Oklahoma's not just losing crops, it's losing its grip on what farming used to mean. Rainfall has dropped to record lows. Some counties haven't seen meaningful precipitation in over 200 days. That alone would be enough to rattle nerves. But the bigger story is what comes after the fields dry out: the vultures, the out-of-state developers, the corporate land scouts, the private equity firms with checkbooks fat enough to buy entire townships before locals even know what's happening. Farms are being auctioned off at courthouse steps. And it's not neighbors who are buying. It's investors looking to convert rural lands into carbon credit projects, biofuel ventures, or simply sit on them until the next climate crisis drives prices higher. Meanwhile, local families are being squeezed from every direction. The cost of irrigation has doubled due to power hikes. Diesel prices are still floating above $5 per gallon. Feed is unaffordable, fertilizer is scarce, and bank lending is shrinking by the week. In counties like Woodward and Beckham, reports show livestock herds being culled, not because they're sick, but because owners can no longer afford to feed them. The land is dry, the shelves are thinning, and people are leaving. Population loss is accelerating. Schools are consolidating. Clinics are downsizing. Grocery stores in the Panhandle have reduced operating hours, citing low volume and high theft. That's not just rural decline, that's managed disappearance. And the worst part, it's not being framed as a crisis. It's being sold as progress. Policymakers are calling it agricultural transition. Industry reps say it's about modern land use optimization. But to the families walking away from third-generation ranches, it looks a lot more like betrayal dressed up in PowerPoint. What makes Oklahoma's situation uniquely brutal is the bait and switch. For years, farmers here were encouraged to expand operations, take on debt, mechanize everything. Loans flowed freely. Federal incentives pushed monoculture models. And now when the weather turns and the numbers collapse, those same farmers are told the model is outdated. The rules changed, quietly, Conveniently, the true drought isn't in the clouds. It's in capital access and protection. The system still works, just not for you. And where does the food go? Nowhere, or everywhere. Crops that do survive are shipped out by contract, locked into long-term export deals. Very little stays local. Small towns still pay high prices for food grown a few miles away. And that's the game production stays here, value leaves here. Oklahoma is being emptied out while still feeding the system. It's the ghost in the machine. Next up, we hit Texas. Not just the biggest in land, but now among the biggest in losses. When the engine room of American agriculture starts leaking, the flood isn't just local. It spreads everywhere. And the cracks in Texas aren't quiet anymore. Stick around. It's time to look at the giant. Number 7, Texas. Texas isn't teetering. It's roaring into crisis. This isn't a slow unraveling. It's an impact event, and the blast radius is spreading across every layer of American agriculture. From the Panhandle to the Rio Grande Valley, the numbers aren't just bad, they're staggering. And worse, they're structural. Over 1 million acres of farmland have already been pulled from production across the state. Not for lack of demand, not even for poor soil, but because everything around the system, energy, water, labor, insurance, is collapsing faster than the land can keep up. Cotton, once the pride of West Texas, is now a gamble few are willing to take. Between record-high input costs and insurance policies that only pay out when it's already too late, entire fields are being left unplanted. In the High Plains, some counties are reporting crop insurance claims up over 300% since last year. Farmers aren't even trying anymore. They're cutting their own losses before Mother Nature does. And then there's the cattle. Texas runs more cattle than any other state, but in 2025 that's become a liability. Feedlots are shrinking, water costs have surged, and meat processors are squeezing ranchers with prices that barely cover transport. Ranchers are downsizing or selling off completely, often to foreign-backed buyers who don't live here, don't care about the land, and don't intend to raise a single head of livestock. Their goal, land holdings, water rights, control. It's not just a takeover, it's a redrawing of the map. Now zoom out. What does that mean for everyday Texans? In cities like Lubbock, Midland, and even outskirts of Houston, food banks are sounding alarms. They're running dry, not because donors stopped giving, but because the pipeline has dried up. Produce is rotting before it makes it to shelves. Grocery chains are paying more to move food across the state than to buy the food itself. Families are standing in lines only to walk away with canned beans and starches, if anything at all. Meanwhile, local economies are losing their backbone. Tractors sit idle, repair shops close, feed stores are boarding up. And it doesn't end there. Schools are cutting agricultural programs. County fairs are being canceled. High schoolers who once thought they'd inherit farms are now applying for warehouse jobs in Dallas. And still the prices climb. At the checkout line, Texans are paying more than ever for less than they've ever had. And while shelves may look full, the supply chain behind them is paper thin. A single disruption, a storm, a fuel hike, a trade hiccup could snap it all. Texas isn't just big, it's a bellwether. When agriculture starts bleeding here, it's not a local issue. It's a national fault line. What's happening in Texas is what happens when the system eats itself. When big agriculture devours small farms, when land becomes more valuable than labor, when policy is written for profits, not people, this is the end of farming as you knew it, and the beginning of something colder, quieter, and far less human. Now let's take a breath. But not for long, because what's coming next isn't a state, it's the conclusion. And it ties everything you've just heard into one final haunting truth. Stay close. This is the part they don't want you to hear. This isn't about drought, or floods, or tariffs. It's about a system unraveling in slow motion and pretending it's fine. From California's ghost orchards to Texas's silent feedlots, what you've just seen isn't a series of accidents. It's a pattern of neglect, of profit over people, of policies that protect spreadsheets, not soil. And while farmers are being pushed off their land, regular folks are the ones paying more for food that's worse in quality, farther from home, and harder to trust. But here's the part that should haunt you. No one's sounding the alarm loud enough. Because if they did, they'd have to admit the truth. So now it's on you. To question, to share, To remember this next time you walk past a grocery aisle that looks full but feels empty. This isn't just the fall of American farming, it's the quiet collapse of the table we all sit at.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.